Or to the cloud. Oh no. Well, everybody, what the heck? Got a power outage here. What is going on? Just lost 2 monitors. My thingy was beeping. I think we had a power outage or something here. I'm not sure what happened. There was a glitch though, and my monitor went out. Still out on that. I don't understand. Oh, okay. I think I blew a fuse. Too many heaters in one circuit. Okay, hang on. I'll be right back. Let me explain. Be with you shortly on live stream. Okay, back again. There's always something, it seems. Oops. So I can get my windows back together here. Everything kind of, whoops. There we go. Oh boy, yeah, I had a power outage here all of a sudden. So bear with me while I can reconfigure everything and carry on here. Fortunately, my backup power supply kicked in and we kept going. Okay, okay, just about got it back together here. All right, so welcome everyone to the Keshe Plasma Reactor group for Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. And welcome to the new year and a new year of plasma reactor groups. I'd kind of like to hear from people, well, first of all, what's going on, anything interesting over the holidays that anyone might have, but also some input as to how to proceed into the new year with this group in particular, and what you'd like to see happen and what we're able to make happen. So let me just a bit more configuring to do here, but I'll open up. I'm just going to start my video just to say hi, but I need to do something. Bear with me a sec.
We would like to hear if you are talking to us, Rick. Your microphone is muted on Zoom.
Yeah, I'm not really talking too much yet. I'm still trying to get the camera set up here. Just bear with me a second. Uh, Okay. All right, so there I go, and we're live. As live as it can be. Almost near life experience here. All right, so yes, Keshe Plasma Reactor Group, and it is Wednesday, January 9th. So what do people have to offer here? Anything to present for today's show? Any particular topics you'd like to see covered, or any news you'd like to dwell upon? Hello. Oh, it always takes a while to warm people up here in the early morning hours in some parts of the world. So, okay, Christian just said he'll be here in a short time. Okay, he might have something to present. Shandor, you were mentioning about tendons and cartilage and CO2 Gans and so on. Could you elaborate on that? Because I'm interested in that too.
So I'd play a fragment of 4 minutes, about 4 minutes, from Mr. Keshe's teaching, if that's okay.
Yes,
It's
I think so.
from the Knowledge Seekers workshop number 138 from 2016, September 22nd. Just a second.
Yeah, yes, this is Flint.
Could you turn the sound down? John, it was very loud. Thank you.
More down? It was
I don't
20%.
know where it's at now. It was very loud when it started, that's all.
Okay, it was 20%.
Yeah, Zoom does weird things sometimes. Okay, go ahead.
United States.
Yes, from the United States. Yes.
Thanks very much for all your hard work, Flint.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. In extension to that question on the knee, what would be advisable if there's like no cartilage in the knee there, so it's like bone on bone, so it's really painful to walk, or can't even walk? What would be a good remedy to?
You can rebuild the cartilage. It's very easy. Building cartilage with the plasma technology is as easy as drinking water. I've done many times. But the only thing is you produce nano micro layers at a time. When you do it, you have to take the pressure off it. Just for about 2, 3, 4 weeks, try not to walk to rub what you produced. One of the best ways to do it is to get what is known the knee transfer braces, where you take the pressure off your knee, you allow the cartilage and everything else to be reproduced. It's a simple thing. You have your femur, you have your lower bone. It's a very simple plastic system with, now they use solid plastic here and here, and it has a strap there. You strap there. What happens, there's a joint here on the solid plastic. You transfer the weight of the body through the joints, and you give the bone a freedom, a joint a freedom.
I'd add here that this device is sometimes called orthesis, from orthopedical and prosthesis put together.
So you see that a lot of sports people wear, but you need it. Then what you need to do, you produce Gans of CO2, Gans of copper oxide. You need to understand the ratio of, you need another material which is a cartilage is made of, which is partially calcium based. You need to have a calcium oxide in there. You need zinc oxide because cartilage carries a lot of emotion, and you need a fair amount of CH3. And you just put it around the knee and you take the pressure off it. You take this system from the time you walk off the bed till you go back into bed, make sure there is no weight on it. You allow the cartilage not only to be made, you will make cartilage every day. The body, even when you don't have a cartilage, it still makes it, but because it's got so thin, everything is made, is dropped off. You speed up the process, but you give it a chance to build up. And then after 2 or 3 months, there is enough of it, not only made, it's not soft anymore, it's hard enough. 6 months is preferable. You should have no problem with the knee because you enhance the production and the body will carry on. All you need to do is to take the pressure off it and then create an environment to encourage the much more rapid production of the material. If you have ligament or damage with the knee, you need to add magnesium and into that mixture because tendons are different than cartilage. They have a magnesium mixture in them, and you need a fair amount of what you call magnesium in the mixture, because that's why the cartilage is very shiny color, is not red, because it has certain amount of copper in it, but magnesium is part of its structure.
So that was the little video fragment.
Nice, Chandler. Very good. In fact, I have a friend with suffering from that exact problem with his knees right now, and that's going to be quite useful.
Yeah. So we have for tendons we need magnesium in the composition, and there are other videos also where Mr. Keshe mentions about magnesium. Now I think it's preferable to be somehow an organic source of magnesium, and for calcium Gans we have different ways. We know from Dr. Rodrigo's presentation, from that blueprint for cancer presentation, that he used chicken bones, for instance, to extract calcium.
Well, I was thinking about that, in fact, the last couple of days, because I wanted to work with calcium. So how does, I was thinking eggshells, but
I would show something. Yes, some people use eggshells. You have to boil them, to clean them. And please allow me to share my video because the host did.
Okay.
So let me show you something. It still doesn't work.
I think I had to allow the panelists to start the video.
Yes. Yes, that's so useful sometimes. We address properly, no suit and tie, but properly for a snowy winter morning. You know, maybe these so-called sepia bones. Mr. Keshe once mentioned.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Keshe mentioned that this is one of the best sources. You can find them in pet shops as a supplement for birds or for turtles. In some more expensive version, it has here some metallic clip to hang it into the cage of a parrot, for instance, so that the bird can pick from the softer part. So it has a harder and a softer part. You can feel it by touching it, and you can simply scrape this softer part of it. You see, this is hard. This doesn't scrape, and this is the soft one. You can see how it can be made powder. You just take a teaspoon and you just scrape that into a tray or into a saucer. You pick that dust and you transform it in a nanostate by adding some caustic. So you will get from this thing, which is mainly made of 75%, I think it's made of calcium carbonate, but a very interesting organic one. And with caustic, you make it into a calcium hydroxide, which is insoluble and it goes to the bottom. So you can wash out the leftover of sodium salts and sodium hydroxide, and then what is left and which is washed, you add it to a working CO2 kit inside. Then you make plasma water from that mixture of this one with the CO2 gas which was collected there. According to KF Wiki, that's one of the recommended methods. Otherwise, there are about 3 methods described, and I see not too many references of who made and why it works in that way, but this is a good procedure. Sepia, it's Latin name, it's a cuttlefish. So it's a cuttlefish bone. You know, the cuttlefish, it's like a calamari, just a smaller one. And it swims in the water. And while the fishes have some bellows for air in order to go to the top of the water, cuttlefish has this structured bone which is full of air inside, and this allows it to go to the top when it swallows not so much water. And these are picked from the seaside. Usually the waves are pushing them out. You see after the body of the cuttlefish decomposes, this is its so-called bone. It's not a bone, but it's a similar structure, and it's very similar to the human bone structure. And one like this, it costs maybe $1 per piece. It's not the fancy one. If it's a fancy, it can be up to $5 or something like that. From one, you can take out about 5 grams, or this size, 5 grams of powder. Usually, if you pick it, sorry.
When you put it in the caustic, does it actually dissolve in the caustic? And then
first you make powder. You scrape off.
Yeah.
You scrape off. You see the powder.
Yeah. You put.
And that scraped powder you put into a vessel in which you put caustic, then hot water. You can calculate exactly with a stoichiometric formula how much caustic is needed for how much. Let's say for 5 grams of this powder, you need maybe 4 grams of caustic sodium hydroxide as a ratio to not put on excess. If you pick them not from the shop, but if you pick them from the seaside, if you're living on the seaside and you can pick them from the shores, in that case, first you have to boil them to take off the bad smells and so on. And after you boiled and dried, it's good to keep it packed airtightly when it is dry to avoid mold or other bacteria to make nasty things inside. But usually you get these ones sterile in a pet shop as a food supplement for birds or turtles. An easy source. And it's better than sometimes when picking up the eggshells, because those are also smelling, so they also need to be boiled, processed, dried, and burned. Once upon a time, Mr. Keshe told about another method when he told about eggshell in 2014, maybe. He said to calcinate it, to not with this word, but to heat it up until it burns out. So practically from the calcium carbonate, which is organic, you make a calcium oxide, which again you add to the CO2 Gans, and you make a plasma water with it.
That's a bone, Sandor, or is that a piece of cartilage?
It's no, it's a kind of similar stuff to the bone. You can look up Wikipedia for Cuttlefish Bone, Cuttle. Maybe I can find a Wikipedia page. Yes, it's here. It's $1-2 if you buy it from a pet shop. Let me share again my screen with a wiki page. Cuttlebone, also known as cuttlefish bone. It's a hard, brittle internal structure found in all members of the family Cepidae, or sepia, which are known commonly as cuttlefish. It's not much a fish, a family within the cephalopods. It means those animals which have the legs attached to their head. It's composed primarily of aragonite, which is a calcium carbonate material, but it's crystalline. It's a crystalline version. It's a chambered gas-filled shell used for buoyancy control, etc., etc., etc. And you need the ventral side from where you can scrape off, just the soft part, not the hard part. In jewelry making, they used to use it for making mold for small metal castings because it resists to high temperature. They were just scraping off.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And it's a very interesting structure. If you have a very good microscope to see, it's an amazing structure. A very sophisticated structure.
Wow.
Which, with very little material, it gives porosity, lightweight, and strong. Yes. So this is about the cuttlefish. And it's you can find it often in pet shops where they sell things for birds.
Yes, I remember my grandmother had it for her budgie bird.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good info. Thank you.
Yeah, this is for source for calcium.
This would be interesting for reconstructing your column, your vertebral column.
For whatever bone is needed, needs reconstruction, and you need calcium, fields of calcium Gans.
And the cartilage too, it's mentioned, so that's...
Yes. Meanwhile, for tendons, you need to add magnesium.
Right. Well, that's really good information. Anything else you want to impart about that, Shandor?
Thank you. I'm using it. I'm using this calcium Gans for the moment for tentative reduction of overinflated, how to say, lymph node, which reached to the side of an egg in several months. So probably it's like a clogged drain and in 98% of the cases it's calcium. I am feeling better after using it. I'm using it 3 times a day for about 1-2 hours each time. So 2 patches, one on the left, the week one times the quantity 10 milliliters of plasma water on the side where is the problem, and 20 milliliters in another patch, so ratio 2:1 on the other side. I tried with 3:1 ratio, but it was too strong.
What do you mean too strong?
Sensations were not pleasant.
Really, yeah? You could feel it that strongly.
You have a higher ratio between the patches. In that case, you will have a higher speed of or flow of plasma fields between.
The flux.
Yeah, it's experimental, but it's more appealing than going under the knife, which because the lymph node is just below a big muscle and very near to nerves and jugular vein. The surgery information says that they will cut and sacrifice some muscles, so you cannot move your head and neck, and probably if they sacrifice a nerve, you cannot move your arm, or accidentally you can lose your voice, or have heartbeat issues and many other things, so it's not appealing at all.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big chance to cause more harm with operation. Furthermore, after a lymph node is removed, the lymph is still produced, but it will have no way to be collected. So such a lymphedema occurs very frequently, and doctors cannot handle that.
Well, best of luck with that. May it all resolve.
And furthermore, in my case, it was recommended the total extraction of that increased lymph node just for diagnostic purpose, to find out what was the cause of it, just to dissect it. So thank you very much. I don't need that. You see, the operation is perfect, but the patient exited.
Yes, as long as they get their data, that's all they're interested in.
Don't want to become a statistical figure.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to avoid that these days, it seems, but do the best we can to stay above ground. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments about the cartilage tendon Gans connection?
Yeah, I imagine it's avoid an overdose of calcium and don't let the doctors cut your lymph nodes out.
Absolutely. So if you have such issues, stay away of all kinds of sugars, including from sweet fruits. So take only sour fruits, like sour berries or green apples, the green species, and avoid calcium supply. No coffee and no dairies. No milk, no cheese.
So is that what you're on now?
Mainly, yes. Yes. Sometimes, so I don't make a strict diet, so maybe once per 2 weeks I'm taking a coffee and it's fine, but I get rid of daily sugar consumption and sugary food consumption and coffees and so on. So I switched first to green tea and later to just plain water.
Yeah.
Water has a fantastic taste if it's pure.
Yes, right. I'm going through the same ordeal. I'm having to quit sugar and coffee, and which I've done, and I've been fasting for 3 days. So that's maybe it's just time to do internal cleansing.
And Sandor, how does the calcium support the lymph node? It repairs it? Is this what you're trying?
The purpose is if it's right. So let me Let me share on the whiteboard. Let's see. So the lymph node, basically it has such kind of structure. So it has some afferent and efferent, so incoming and outgoing lymph vessels. By the way, recently, just 4 years ago, scientists discovered that there is a lymph production in brain as well, which was unknown for the moment. So you understand how complete is the anatomical knowledge of modern medicine. We are still discovering such a thing. So on the lymph vessel, there are such valves which allow the motion of the lymph in just one direction. And it has so-called hilum inside, so it has such a separator. So if you cut a pomegranate, you see that there are such a separators. Such kind of separators are called hilum in Latin, in medical. Singular is hilum, which are separating the walls of it and so on. And here are coming T cells, B cells, and all kind of production of stuff which is needed to feed the cells around. Mr. Keshe used to say that a lymph node is like a kitchen. So where it decides according to the thalamus and the thymus commands how to split the available raw materials into which sizes. And sometimes if there is an overproduction, in that case, these things which will go out. Of course, there are blood vessels here in the hilum, so there are small blood vessels as well, so it's more complex. You can look up on Wikipedia or somewhere in some anatomy books about more description. So blood vessels are also present. And here inside it happens the production of different cells. And sometimes it happens that there are leftovers from these processes. And if the leftovers are in too big quantity, for instance, it's a big quantity of leftover calcium very often, in that case, all this thing can become clogged. So it can become clogged. So something goes in, but it cannot go out. There is no heart to pump, no pump to heart, it's just the body motion which makes this pumping. So in that case, if this is clogged, in that case, this thing can expand in size. Usually when you have a dental infection, you have some lymph nodes around which are inflated, but it goes away usually. So, but in case it's something persistent, it's worse, it's good to go to doctors according to the recommendations to find out the reason of it. But in many cases, it can be just clogged with calcium. And if it is calcium, you use a calcium Gans patch, one quantity, 1 times the calcium plasma water on one side, and 2 times or 3 times on the other side. So you try to make a flux. You see, the stronger feeds the weaker, and if you make a flux, that it may sweep off in form of plasma fields the excess of calcium, if you, in a lucky case. But of course, this is a process which has a duration, so it doesn't happen in an instant. So this is what I'm going to do now. To try to do is to try to reduce that thing to a smaller size.
I imagine the lymph nodes work as an osmotic pump for the lymph and a reservoir as a liver for all the lymph products.
I'm not specialist expert to decide about it, so Thank you for the addition, and I invite everyone who wants to know more to do a little self-study about from different various sources, not just rely on one single source.
If they've taken so many years to learn about this, the specialists, they must not know much about it either.
Yeah, I was once discussing with a surgeon who told me, sorry, I'm surgeon for other kind of things and it's your problem. So he was a plastic surgeon. And but he said, at least I know anatomy, which I cannot say about many colleagues. It was a surgeon's word. At least he knew some anatomy. You see, so many people go to the school and they get a grade, an A, a B, an E, or D, or whatever. But most of them will get a diploma at the end. But not all are the same level of knowledge and dedication. But there are some 4 or 5% who are better than others, and so on. So it depends who is the person.
Imagine going to a mechanic and he's a specialist on nuts and bolts and knows nothing about all the mechanical part.
This is common in any profession.
Sure, it's like the old joke where they said, what do they call a guy who finishes last in his medical class? Doctor. He gets the same designation as the top-ranked student. And as far as the lymph, is the lymph the stronger calcium in the patches? It's feeding the weaker of the patches?
No. So maybe some calculation, some study may be useful about the weights and the ratios, and you can look to Giovanni Lapadula's presentation of last year, April 14th, and do your own study. So try not to copy, but to understand what you are doing if you do anything. And don't claim that somebody taught you wrong, because this is just for education purpose. It's not an advice to do it for your health. For your health, go to the doctor. That's the advice. Otherwise, you have to understand things, important things, like Mr. Keshe told. If you make a Gans which you want to be tuned on certain tissues, then the salinity shall match. So think about the salinity of blood is about 9%, and there is a 30 to 1 ratio between sodium and potassium salts. In case of lymph, it's a bit more, just slightly a bit more than 0.9, not 9%, 0.9%.
0.9, yes, thank you. I thought that
maybe,
was kind of a lot.
Maybe 1% for lymph, maybe, or below 1% slightly. In case of cartilage, this can be 4 or 5 times more, so 4 or 5% salinity. In case of bone, the salinity can go up to 30%. You have to find resources to find out reliable source about which tissue you want to handle with plasmatic fields. And it has no, how to say, side effects. Just you have to know what you do. And it's a mild thing to create conditions which are providing an environment in which the tissues can fix themselves, or the body can fix itself. You make your study for which tissues, which salinity, which ratio of sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. is inside. And it requires some studies. Think about when Mr. Keshe taught us in different presentations, for instance, about the cup of life, that he takes 48 working hours of calculations before to make one. It's now an obsolete technology, but anyway, it needed a lot of calculation. Or if you go to the presentation, Knowledge Seekers Workshop number 190, when he has shown us how to create specific conditions for specific Ganses, in which environment to be produced. You remember that box divided in 24 or 48 smaller boxes? So there he told also that some people make these Ganses in 2 days, but he designed such a system in about 1-2 weeks. If you go back, it's the same 48 hours of calculations. So try to understand the purpose and the destination of what you do, and do your studies before to prepare. But you see, there are so many people, they say, oh, they just put a battery and they make much more huge quantities of Gans in just 2 hours. So what you want? To make fast a lot, or to make in proper time something which is usable? I think quality shall come before quantity.
Speaking of which, the salt concentration makes a huge difference that way too. And what salt concentration are you using in your CO2 boxes in general, Shandor?
It depends of purpose. So sometimes I'm using 4-5%, sometimes below 1%.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the purpose. If I want to do something for the lymph system or for the blood, in that case I go for 0.9% or 1%, or around that. You can get a small scale, digital scale nowadays. They are not expensive so much. They are $10-20. Such a small digital scale you can order from internet, which are used by jewelers for milligrams or grains or whatever units you want. So you can measure exact quantities even for a half liter of water. And by the way, I'm not anymore making Gans in huge boxes. Why to use a 3 liters box and waste a lot of distilled water when I can make just half liter? Less copper, less metals used.
Half liter jar, you mean?
Let's say I'm using sometimes empty food boxes which are made of polypropylene, sometimes repurposed ice cream boxes, polypropylene box.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So before I was choosing from IKEA the big box, larger one, 40 liters. It's huge, so it fits a lot. So if you want to make a batch together, let's say Magref coils, you may need that. But even then you go for the minimum size, which fits all the pieces. But when you just need a little Gans, you have to go for quality, not for quantity. So nowadays I'm choosing the smallest containers, which I can fit the things inside.
Mm-hmm. Good hint. I think that's good advice. Much more easy to flush out the salt afterwards and so on. Alrighty. Have we exhausted that topic yet, Shandor? Or it's pretty good explanation you gave there. Pretty well-rounded, I'd say. I don't know if Mark got a good answer, but he's...
Yes, and it also sounds a similar thing when the kidneys get clogged. The ducts get clogged, I think, also with calcium. It's probably a similar process. I was just trying to figure out what one is the stronger one. It can't be the lymph, or, well, it has to be the lymph because it has to feed the weaker one. Otherwise, it won't pull out of there, the calcium. But that was just my question.
Can you repeat just the question, please?
No, I'm saying the lymph must be the stronger one because in the plasma science, it feeds the weaker one. So to remove the calcium from the lymph, it has to be stronger than what the outside patches are so it could feed it. Yes?
So there may be different things. So let's think about, this is your target. It has a certain mass of calcium. Now the point is, can you measure how much calcium is in it?
No.
So that's the problem. So there can be different approaches. It's not just one method. So one of the methods is to use a patch with 1 times the quantity and with 2 times the quantity. Here. So now if this, but you use only plasma water, you don't use Gans. So now what happens here? If there is nothing in between, or if there is something in between, still they feed each other. Now if this target has a bigger mass, what happens? It will feed in both directions until it will reach a mass smaller than that patch from the right side. What about if it's smaller? It still enters into this flux. So there will be a flux from B to A, B being the bigger quantity and A being the smaller. So you create a plasma wind. And even if you have, say, a small one, you will get that in a way swept away by that plasmatic wind. So in its way from plasma B to plasma A, the target plasma in the middle will contribute and compensate the losses, but it will still feed that flux. And another way is by using magnets. So if you use magnets which have the south poles, one toward the other, I don't know whether it's need to connect with a iron plate here in between or not, but I think that will increase the effect. In that case, you will have an extraction from here to here, or you can put a different way to weaken the target which is in the middle by putting north here and south here. Or let me erase it first. You can put the north here and south here. So again, you create a flux. You see, north is the outgoing and south is the incoming, and you put as filter again your plasma water patches here. So I think by applying some magnets, it's possible to increase the flux. But I think it will work also with this simple formula, which was used successfully by the doctors in difficult cases. So understand the basics. The stronger plasma feeds the weaker plasma. As a basic thing, and similar will interact with the similar one, or with the near similar. And usually,
it's quite interesting about the magnets that you brought up there, Shandor, and the way they're orientated and how it may affect the fields.
Yeah, if you want to feed something, so let's say you want to give calcium, in that case, one of the ways would be to put the same quantities on both sides. Suppose that in the middle you have a smaller, a weaker quantity. Let's say you want to feed calcium to a broken bone or something. In that case, you give a bigger quantity of patches, but of equal size from both. In that case, they will feed to the center. Or you add the magnets or maggraph coils or whatever with the nose, with the exit going to the center. And you add the patches in the way. It's my thinking only, so please verify this information before to use it. It's not an advice to do it, it's just a theoretical approach for study purpose. How would you handle bodily issues if you are somewhere on a vessel or on a spaceship and you have no teams of doctors to help you? Or even if you are in a desert lost somewhere and you have no helicopter to come for you, or in the middle of ocean, etc., etc., etc. So you can choose how to make the fluxes, in which direction. Or for instance, if you have a body part and you have a problem which is here, which you want to take out, so how you feed it from which direction? Would you like to move all that mass through all the body? No, you choose the shortest way out. So you put the 2 times patch here and the 1 times patch here to give the direction on the shortest way to the outside of the body, to the skin.
I was just thinking of the article on viruses in the Plasma Times, where you're thinking along the homeopathic way, where like cures like.
Yeah, that has to be understood as well. Mr. Keshe has a very nice paper about the secrets of the homeopathy. You can purchase that from the Keshe Foundation USA webshop. So why homeopathy works in terms of magnetic fields, and why homeopathic preparate doesn't work if you pass it through the security scanners at the airport, where are subjected to strong magnetic fields.
You mean the homeopathic won't work after it's been exposed to a scanner, basically from an airport or
You, so what is a homeopathic thing? It's a basically it's a water, alcohol, or maybe sugar. Oh, can you hear my voice? Because the Zoom cannot detect my sound. I don't know why.
And the field.
Okay, so you transfer the fields of certain materials or substances into that water or sugar or alcohol or whatever it is. So it's just the fields, like it's like the plasma water. So now, even if you have a plasma water or something, what happens if you put it under strong variable electromagnetic fields and you shake it? It's losing its magnetic properties. You see, the watchman is using tiny screwdrivers for very tiny screws. And if accidentally his screwdriver gets magnetized, in that case, he got screwed. Because he cannot he cannot screw inside the 1 millimeter or half millimeter screw into the tiny hole, because the screwdrivers will pull it out. So that's why all the watchmen have such a tool which is called demagnetizer, which in fact it's just an iron core with some coil on it, which is fed at a certain high voltage via one strong capacitor. So it loads the capacitor from a power source. When it discharges the capacitor, it switches this from there to here. It discharges the capacitor through the coil, and here it makes a variable magnetic field according to the frequency of this coil and the capacitor, and that will go amortized in this way. So it polarizes the steel which you place here. You place here your tiny screwdriver or whatever piece you want, or you have a similar device which is used in supermarkets for certain stickers, anti-theft stickers, which are working on magnetic base. So it gives a voltage. This is time, this is voltage, which is variable. It goes to the maximum value, to the minus value to the minimum value, and it goes down, 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 and it decays to zero. So it changes the polarity in both ways, in one direction and the other, in one direction and the other. Finally, the permanent magnetic properties of that piece of steel will be dampened or diminished or made vanish. Same if you do to a plasma water, similar things happen. So why the water which you heat up into a microwave oven doesn't have the same properties for feeding your body like fresh water? Maybe you know the story. Once in a hospital, somebody needed a blood transfusion, and a nurse had the idea to warm up the transfusion because it was taken out from the patient, had to make it 37 centigrades to the body temperature before administering it. They had the idea to put it in a microwave. The patient died. Just you have to understand, water is a vehicle for information, for fields.
Yeah, normally for demagnetizing, you use alternate current on a iron core and just keep it.
Yeah, that's also possible. That's also possible. With discharging in train and impulses, it's one method. The other is just to keep it 60 hertz or 50 hertz or whatever frequency. It's very similar.
Yeah, and keep it near and then give it more distance so the field will be weaker and weaker, and that's a way to just erase all the residual magnetic fields.
Thank you. The effect from the viewpoint of the piece of steel, it's the same. So it gets alternating direction of fields in both directions, which are getting weaker, weaker, weaker until zero. So you can do that either by departing slowly from the electromagnet, or by making an electromagnet which just discharges the capacitor through this coil. Is the same. Thank you for the addition.
Yeah, that's the way they demagnetize the tapes.
Yes. Which we tend to forget about the old magnetic tapes. Started early in the 30s of the past century. Originally, they were just steel wires, and later magnetic tape was invented, and so on. And such 20 years ago, all the magnetic tape factories started to shut down worldwide because the CD and DVD technology surpassed it. And even now, DVDs and CDs are not anymore at the fashion because now you have solid-state drives, USB key drives, and so on. Now you can get such USB drives of several terabytes. So one technology is surpassing another. It's good for our education to know the history of how these technologies developed and how they decayed. It gives a better understanding of the progress of the science and technology.
Speaking of which, I see there's a comment from Raphael in the chat. Says last
Raphael
year.
Hürlimann from Switzerland.
Pardon me?
Raphael Hürlimann from Switzerland.
Okay, yeah.
We met in Rome last time.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Hello.
You mentioned, are you there?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, maybe you'd like to discuss, you mentioned in the chat about a publication from
Yes.
Ioannis from Stanford University about dry fasting and recovery of the lymphs. So maybe if you can mention about that, because that's interesting. I was going to just talk about fasting and how it is amazing for recovery and draining of the lymph system and so on. But dry fasting is another thing. I'm talking about the master cleanser is the maple syrup, lemon juice, and cayenne pepper. And I think the lemon juice has a lot to do with the recovery of the lymphs. But anyway, if you want to say something about that, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just heard from this. It was in May or March last year. There was a publication from John Loandis, Stanford University. He's a researcher in all things like the corpse behave, like people, the people's behavior and how they make people sick. So he has a different join-in to all this medical views, and he looks from another side. And with some of his students, he made a group of people and let they for 4 days dry fast, and this once in a month, 6 times in a row. And after this, they tested all the organs, the lymphs, and all the stuff. And it seems like after the dry fast, the limbs are dry also, and they kind of combine themselves new. They recover, and because all is dependent of the floating in the body. It's like a car. A resting car gets sick, and the resting body gets sick also. It's the exhaust maybe is not okay, or something sticks into the line, into the organism, and the lymphs are like a highway for all the materials to transport in the corpse. And if the limbs are sticking, the rest will go sick immediately, step by step. And they found out that people with diabetes or different diseases had a real better feeling just after the first session of dry fast. And they could this test and found out, yeah, there's real new setup in the body after this 6th session, and they are continuing on these experiments. But it works. It seems to work.
Sorry, how long were the sessions again, the dry fasting?
Short periods of 4 days in a row.
Okay.
Dry fast.
So 4 days with no liquids and no solids, basically.
Yeah, there's a. If you take liquids, then just spoon-wise.
Oh, okay.
Just to wetting the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think they have released these studies, and you can read the whole procedure, because I just wrote it and not I was not going deeper into the informations.
Yeah, if someone finds the publication, it might be good to post a link in the chat.
I was in search, but I didn't find it.
Yeah, I did a quick search of his name, but I didn't search for the documents. So. Yeah, interesting.
Thank you very much for sharing. I remember Gino Di Serio. Master Gino has a big experience in dry fasting. And let me say something. We hear reports of dry fasting helps to recover the immune system and recover the body. And we hear of other shocking methods like in 1990, 91, it was a new trend of taking a cold bath. I think it started in England. So you just filled your bath tube with 20 centigrades temperature water, which is pretty cold, and you just took a bath there for a couple of minutes, how much you resisted, and you do that several times in a week or every day, and the immune system gets reinforced. And I'm just thinking, it's just my idea, my theory, that if you shock your body in any such a way. So this is a kind of stress that you don't provide the drinking water as in dry fasting. It's a kind of
it's a good point.
Stressful reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if you go to take bath in cold water or with snow or whatever, again you create a stressful reaction. And what's the body's answer to stress? It's producing some adrenaline and some other corticosteroids, and you get just the effect of getting a corticosteroid medication without its side effects, because it's something naturally produced by your own body.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember
also,
sorry,
go ahead.
I remember in the army military service, which had compulsory military service when you were about 18, 20 years age. We have been in a cold place. We had minus 25 centigrade winters, and it was an order that under minus 12 centigrades you should not take out the soldiers for physical training outside, because so many cases of flu and the cold and so on. Now I was in a unit, a small unit of about 50-person size, which was amongst the few who went out even in minus 25. So the morning we started, we were dressed only half body, the lower part, not the upper, and with naked upper part we were running about 50 minutes around the building, and then doing gymnastics. And we were the only one unit where nobody got cold. Meanwhile, others who just preserved themselves from going out, they had about 10% of people with flu symptoms. So there is something in such a kind of shock therapy.
Yeah, good point. Good example.
And just to add to that, I used to listen to a person that's a health teacher, and one of the things they described was when you take a shower, and then at the end of the shower, the water is hot, and then 3 times you reduce the hot until you just feel the cold, and then warm your body back up with the hot, and then back to the cold, and then back to the hot, and then end up with the cold as much as you could handle. And that shocking method was some sort of a help to the body.
Yeah, this was from Dr. Kneip. It was a German doctor. He had this procedure is around 1817. He has installed this Kneip therapy.
It's interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, let's remember Dr. Prisnitz.
Pardon me?
Dr. Prisnitz from the 19th century.
Yeah, he had one once from him.
He had many therapies with cold water patches over different parts of the body.
Oh, yes.
Later, some corporate came up with pills, and all these were not anymore taught, because that corporation or its foundations and corporations just overtook the leadership in the medical education in the 1920s.
It's hard to make money in cold water.
It's easier to make out money from so to say from crude oil byproducts.
Yeah, it's the petrochemical industry. They learned from a ton of salt and a ton of raw oil, the heavy one, which is not floating. They can make nearly everything, and so the petrochemical industry was grown.
Yep, and when I was growing up and learning chemistry and so on, they would guide you into, well, here's the oil byproduct, and how many different products can you make from this? And try to get the engineers to kind of think in those terms, all these different products, subproducts, and fractionings and so on that can be made from that original oil product. And of course there are lots, but and many of them have been useful to us as a culture, but also many have been very toxic and very harmful to our culture in general. And I think we're learning as a species all over the earth that it's time to fade away from those oil-based derivatives. Something that came up for me recently is I talked to a friend, and his wife is suddenly allergic to everything, similar to the way I became allergic. And now it's her mania in her life is all about these allergies and so on. And it's so much that she's basically allergic to humans because everybody likes to put on their scent, that their personal deodorant or some sort of perfume.
So some are really chemical weapons.
Yes, and it turns out that she is now basically allergic to humans when it comes right down to it, especially in the major metropolitan areas where everybody's engaging in all that all the time. They're trying to exude your own aura around you with your scent, basically. And it's been overwhelming to her, and she's had to spend time. They got a new property that's 40 acres, so that she has several hundred meters between her and the neighbors, because even just the scent of a laundry detergent or those little dryer sheet things, or scented sheets, that can trigger her immediately. And so this is a big deal nowadays. This is all nanoparticles is what we're talking about. As Mr. Keshe mentioned, the sense of smell is we're smelling nanoparticles, and even the scientists are discovering that as well. It's not just a vapor as such; it's actual nanoparticles that get transferred over into our nose receptors, and we either think they're smells good or smells bad or whatever response we happen to get, depending. But it's become a big issue with more and more humans and more contamination of our environments. That what is it that we're taking in all the time? How many nanoparticles? What kinds? She discovered she was taking in fiberglass nanoparticles at a rate of about 1,000 times more than the recommended average, because they were doing some duct work in the school she was working in. So this is like clouds of nanoparticles that are being inhaled, and now they're stuck in her lungs, because that's what happens with fiberglass, and other nanoparticles that pass directly through the lungs and into the actual organs of the body where they hang out. And I was looking at some tests. Even if you take, they did the tests with the nanoparticles, zinc oxide nanoparticles, and copper oxide. Or sorry, the CO2 nanoparticles. I was looking at the lab test there yesterday, actually, from, I forget where the link is right now. And all the test results are there, and the nanoparticles build up in the organs, in the liver and spleen, so on, the cleaning organs. But in the case of the zinc oxide, it actually builds up but doesn't do any harm. And the lethal dosage of the zinc oxide and CO2 is extremely high. It's not considered toxic because it's so high. And I thought that was quite interesting. And actually does benefit at lower dosages, especially. So when it's used in moderation, ingested in terms of Gans water, that'll have the fields, but there's probably going to be some residual particles as well. It's hard to remove all particles from the Gans water. And that does good, actually, in the body. So it's interesting how that can work. Some nanoparticles are not congruent, not getting along well with the body structure, and some do. I'm wondering, in terms of healing of lymph or of unblocking the lymph, how that would work as well, whether there must be an optimum range for the Gans water, optimum sort of concentration inside the body or whatever to produce the effects you want.
I have a question to Sandor. Sandor, did you made the Gans with the potassium chloride salt? Maybe you
I made it with mainly sodium chloride and a very tiny amount of potassium chloride. It should be ratio 1 to 30, 1 part potassium to 30 parts sodium in atomic weight. So you need to do some calculations or to do research for the proper formula of Ringer solution.
Okay.
For the
because
blood
the lifts are depending of the calcium, as I know.
Yes.
And the potassium as well.
Yes, but in the blood or in the lymph, the potassium to sodium ratio is 1 to 30.
Okay, thank you.
It's different in tissues because inside the cells it's more potassium, less sodium.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the liquid. This
Okay.
is different.
Yeah.
Go for the Ringer solution.
Oh, yes, I heard.
And look for the old manuals from the 50s and not from the 80s, because sometimes they change the ratios of the quantities for different purposes.
Yeah.
The older sources are more reliable and not altered so much. You see, the normal values of the blood tests are changing from one laboratory to the other, from 1 month to the other, like it's changing the meteorological or weather forecast.
You know, I had a blood test done once and they made 7 errors between taking my blood and taking it up, analyzing it, and all the results. They made 7 different errors. I counted them because I had to go through them all, and we thought it was venous blood, but it was arterial blood and vice versa. And oh my God, I couldn't believe that there'd be so much confusion over something they've been drawing for many, many years.
Yes, and sometimes I'm reading about a certain test, but it is considered conclusive only if it's positive. If it's negative, it should be disregarded. So what for to do the test when you are condemned to be positive in any way?
Yeah, at the end of my blood test, they told me I shouldn't be alive.
Yeah, it's like it was in the times of Inquisition when they made such a test whether a woman is a witch or she's not a witch. So they put some weights in her pockets, they tied her hands and feet, and they thrown her body on the water. So if she was floating on the top, she was a witch and she was burned. Otherwise, she got sunk. So anyway, she died.
Good news and bad news. Yeah. Yeah.
Was talking about the fine needle aspiration biopsy for lymph nodes, which in many places, not everywhere in the world, they say the negative result is not conclusive. You cannot conclude anything from negative. It can be a false negative. Of course, it can be a false positive, but that will be immediately followed by other procedures. subsequent radiation therapy, surgery, chemotherapy, and so on. And the end result, it's easy to be forecasted.
I see Brett's here. I'll bring him in. All right. Is any other comments or questions on the topic at hand, or any new topics to be introduced? Hi, Arno. Your mic's open there.
Yeah, can you hear me good? Otherwise, I switch microphone.
Seems pretty good.
Ah, good. I had the same problem when my autoimmune illness was very heavy. I could not stand the smell of odor, so what we put on ourselves, and I had it as child too. But then I started searching, and I did not was a test with plasma science yet. And then I find out when we get metal, the monoatomic metal in our body, and then they still are metastates. That part I did not know yet, but we could not detach it in the normal order. So I start working with kefir. There's also a plant with 30 microbes living in a symbiosis. And in old days it was in Tibet, and then it came to Russia, and a female gave it to the world because the king who had it wanted not to share, and so she was asking and insisting on it. So he was in love on her because he had very good feeling for her, but he took her in jail because she was not married to her. Then people came to rescue her, and he was afraid to die, and so he gave it with her because he did not want to give it. Then he wanted to give gold. He did not take the gold. He wanted only one cup of the plant, and then she started working with it in the beginning of 1900, and then give it to people too, and that repairs you. It repairs your, and it helping your chemistry in your intestines. Now I say it good. And then, smallly my intestines could choose which part come in and which not. And then I start using blueberries to extract. But I could not handle the aluminium. But Mr. Keshe teaches us when we are transparent. That is when, in my experience, when I'm black and becoming so much black that I start giving light. That and then inside out before I came to plasma science. So I tried it and I pushed them out, and it's gone, I think, because my autoimmune sector is now still. I don't have rheumatoid arthritis anymore. My doctor was very confused, but very happy for me that part stopped. And I think it's they were pointing. I saw in the old teaching sometimes to the Keshe Foundation that some people are touching the nanomaterial in the beginning, and even some people are drinking it. When I thought I tasted without touching it, then in the beginning, Sandra also thought I drank it because there was bad connection. But it is it is bad that they create some things to give us for and do us it is normal. Yeah. But now I can I still don't go to people who use or the cologne in a bad habit, or they use the smell stackers. When I go to people with smell stackers, maybe now I don't know yet. I can try in the future, but then I'm ill in one night. I feel my body burns again. But I did not try it anymore last year because I don't want to. But I was in the elevator. Sometimes you have a smelly smell, and it's very bad. And 2 times I was able to become the air around me, and then thinking about normal breathing, and then I don't taste it anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Arno. I see that Dean's had his hand up here, so if you want to go ahead, Dean. See, I can unmute your mic. Maybe you're not able to there. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am present. Rick, thank you for your my God, you've been around here a long time. And
Yep.
I spend a lot of time with the Soul Group, and I have anchored myself with what we have written. And I usually don't drop in on these live. I usually don't drop in on anything live. But at this time, I am going to speak a desire, a wish, and that wish would be all of the things that we have written as a Universal Council and the Earth Council and the research that has been done. And oh my God, I hope it gets downloaded into my spirit so I can understand how to create these things. But I just want to say that I am present with this, and thank you. And I know there are people to help me to understand what I don't understand, because this is a strange new world. And I just wanted to pop in and say, I am present, and thank you. That's it. You can mute me out.
Most excellent, Dean. Thank you. Very nice. Okay. It was an excellent intervention. Yeah, it's good that to give gratitude. Gratitude is a very powerful emotion. It can unlock doorways and get you to places. So it's good to always reinstill that mood of gratitude, I think. We all have something to have gratitude for, but we can take it to some pretty high levels if you want as well. Some days I have gratitude just to be alive, because sometimes it's a struggle and you wonder if you're going to make it through. And of course, eventually we don't, as far as the physicality goes, but we do as far as the essence goes. Take your choice. So this brings in another question of how it goes back to when I started the workshop today, and I was asking, how would people like to see this group develop out, and what kind of topics would you like to get into this year? And what would be fun to investigate? What would be beneficial and elevating, and so on? There's different ways to look at it. There's been changes over the years, that's for sure. If you look at, maybe 5 years ago, when this sort of all started, or before that, around 2012 or 13 or so, we started playing with the idea of reactors and different combinations and so on. It was a lot of it became the hardware issues, how to create a reactor that was rotating and able to maintain a full vacuum inside and add gases at the same time while it's all rotating, sort of thing, as in the original Keshe patent application. And then we got into other aspects of rotating stuff and also non-rotating, and then the Gans boxes and various nano coating, and we've gotten into all kinds of things here, various dynamic and not dynamic reactor combinations. But with there's always been a pretty heavy hardware bent in this group, or at least sort of practical, hands-on type explanations and experiences, more about our own personal experiences with these things that we create. And now in the last year or so, maybe 2 years, but especially last year, it's become more of an emphasis on the, well, it all started with this idea of feeling the fields. And we got, sort of involved in this concept of feeling the fields, and what does that mean? And how can we learn to sense the fields, or feel the fields, or interact with these various plasmatic fields that we speak about? Or how can we visualize them, or how can we manifest them in different ways, or work with them? And all this became more important than the actual hardware issues. And now I see more of an emphasis going toward the, I call it maybe the spiritual side, or soul-based, or essence. I like the word essence-based, rather than the physicality hardware-based. And some people, I think, expressed a couple of weeks ago that might be a direction to follow. So these are some of the issues that I have bouncing around in my brain to try to give some focus and direction as to where to go with the group. But hey, it's up to the group anyway. Oh, hands are popping up here. I guess I stirred something up. I'll let, I think it was Arno's hand up first, and then Dean, and then Lee.
Hey, Rick, met Arno. I want to share something with drawing. So, can I have the whiteboard, and then I can share my experience, what I told a few weeks ago with physical vibration light, what creates also amino. So in the winter, the small plants on the water is growing without. You see the amino acids coming back, and then I was very happy, and then it stopped again. And I put it only in the corner where it was going the other direction, and then I put it in the whole water where I walk by, without being happy after it. And then I see in the whole water the same reaction, and then I did not be happy, because if I be happy, it stopped again. And then
okay.
Then I can explain what I have done.
It's just going to take a few minutes. Do you need a few minutes for this? Let's see what the others had their hands up for first here. I think they wanted to comment maybe on what I was talking about. So if you want to just hang on for a minute, Arno, then we'll get back to you here, okay? Let's see what Dean had to say first. Dean, you have a comment there? Or was your hand already up? I might have to unmute you. Or no, I don't think I have to. I'll try it. Yeah, you're unmuted there now, Dean. Did you have something?
Grace and peace.
Grace and peace.
Grace and peace. Oh, and desire and wishes. Period. I discovered Keshe years ago, and I followed it through the spiritual path, because whatever we have physically, we're about to manifest. I'm going to say spiritually, soul-wise, because our soul is a spot, I guess, within our brain that creates physicality. And that physicality creates reality. And within that reality, I believe that we have the ability to reach in and create physicality. And I think this is where we're going. I hope so. I haven't, no, I've followed, I've tried to follow all of the teachings and how to put it together, and the electromagnetic and the salt and the saline and all of these other things. But from what I understand, and I'm a baby, that Keshe has been trying to lead us into how creation works. And I think it works. Well, I think it works. I am present. We wrote the stuff. It was part of the writing of the stuff. And I'm just going to say I am present, and I believe in my desire and the wishes that we have written together as the Earth Council and I think we create physicality. I think we're trans-dimensional beings, and we're able to go in between, but that's really esoteric stuff. But I think it's within the spirit, within the soul, that we create. If we created our bodies through our souls, then, and if we are really a galaxy within ourselves being expressed, then how do we, I am present, how do we, through I am present, manifest the desire for peace? We spoke, wrote, bring the troops home. You know, I'm in America, okay? Stop it. And I think it's happening. Okay, now what can we create with our souls? Anyway, I'm at a constant loss for understanding how it all works, but I'm glad to be with y'all. And with that, I'm going to bow out. Peace be with you.
All right.
I'm present.
Thank you once again, Dean, and I am present with your wish. Okay, so Lee, you've probably got something you want to show, and that might take a few minutes, so maybe we should get back to Arno, or did you just have a comment, Lee?
I don't think the show, it was just a comment.
Okay.
So you were asking about direction to go in the future here, and my observation over the past 3-4 years is we started out by the research groups and I forget his name, the good doc in Washington State there, showing us their projects and showing us stuff that worked. And you know me, I love building things, and that it gives, when you see something that works, you see light at the end of the tunnel. It encourages you to go try it yourself. Okay. I don't think it's I don't see that as a like Mr. Keshe, how he says he doesn't want to see monkey do, but you got to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And for the past year or so, the light at the end of the tunnel hasn't been shown, in my opinion. I mean, okay, we see a video from China where they've got a ball lit up, but there's no pathway to get to it. There's no, you know, there's some special Gans and so on, but it's a bunch of secrets there. They've cured the pig of that disease, but again, the special Ganses being used. Okay, I get it. They want to sell that Gans and make some profit. Okay, maybe that's not something they want to reveal to the masses.
No, it's more. It's not that. It's not they want to sell it and make a profit. I don't think it's more that if it's not the right combination, you don't want to be giving the formula out to people. It needs to be tested. Not just tested once.
It's okay. I'll go along with that. Look at the
generator. I understand what you're saying, though. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I really want to build is the standalone generator, but we've, you know, and I talk to my buddies around here and my friends, and they just say, "Where's the video? Show us something that works." And I can't, you know, there isn't anyone except for the one Douglas built, and I wasn't able to duplicate that.
Yeah, no one else has.
Where's the videos from the ones in Ghana, for instance, and you know, a few hints of getting there? It seems like we're being blocked there. They don't want us to go down that road. They don't want us to produce these standalone generators. It looks like we're being blocked.
All the information has been disclosed already.
Yeah, but nobody's built
Just
it.
add them together properly.
Yeah, but
there was a video in November 2015. It was a public workshop, but it's a continuation of the Blueprint Week. Generator, where Mr. Keshe explained the difference between capacitor and plasma battery. Has anybody made that?
Made which? The plasma battery?
Difference between plasma capacitor and battery, and it was something which he said we are using in Africa in development. And it had a coil within a coil within a coil with the different layers of gas.
86.
Sorry, Dan, we were talking at the same time. It's due to the system.
Well, maybe we need some review on some of this stuff more often. Maybe Rick, if for instance, there's about 10 different types of capacitors out there, and which one is right for which application. Maybe we need a little bit more review and discussion on this type of stuff. I know I'm a little bit confused there. You got the feedback capacitors and the battery capacitors and the original capacitor and you know, the energy beads of Alex's and stuff. They're all similar, but slightly different. And I've built a bunch of them, but you know, I'm not 100% sure where the best application for each one is. And then every once in a while, there's a new idea that sneaks in there that I haven't built, and I, you know, it may. So I think for us guys to do more experimenting, to show more stuff, we need to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and a few key pieces that go towards building it. Then we'd be off to the races to build this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, we see many people are great in mechanical. Sorry.
Go ahead, Shandor.
I see many people are great in mechanical constructions. They are making beautiful mechanical structures, such a beautiful screws and so on. And I'm not sure if it's more important to have 4 screws which to hold the supports of the coils, or is it more important that you don't put too much matter state between the coils of a maglev to allow the fields to connect each other? These are very small things, but I think they are important. Also, how you make a gradient of fields.
Yeah, Rick,
How you
I
make
think
a
you.
capacitor, putting the Ganses in a certain order to make a gradient. You have to understand basic principles, like similar interacts with the similar or with near similar. You have to understand that the stronger feeds the weaker. And you have to understand the principle of the gradient. You have to understand that it's preferable to have a gradient between Gans state and matter state in form of a nanostate. That's why if you make a support for nano-coated coils or for Gans, you usually nano-coat it. These are very little things, but if you don't add them together, the construction will be beautiful, but it will be beautiful and that's all. You have to make the nanotechnology part carefully. There are many, many videos. You cannot concentrate into a 30 minutes tutorial because there are maybe several weeks of tutorial.
What do we got to show for it? Is there anybody that can light a light bulb? Is there anyone that can make something rotate a motor rotate without electricity? Is there anything that we can show that actually works besides the maggrav that you can kind of show that it reverses the meter?
Yeah, we have seen from Romania, for instance, an empty ball being attracted by a magnet with such a force that it was able to a ping pong ball with just fields inside and very little dust of Gans, a very tiny amount, such a milligrams only or micrograms in the walls, was holding a magnet of about 100 grams, for instance.
Or it might have been the string inside that absorbed all the Gans, and when they broke the globe, it no longer had the magnetic attraction when the string was pulled out.
There were the fields inside which were holding that. Exactly.
Well, there was a string inside, yeah. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty impressive with the magnetic Gans ball thing. That was a new development. I thought it'd be fun to work with that, and that's one of the reasons I'm getting into Gans making again.
Another suggestion, Rick, you're a bit more connected and see a lot more presentations than I do, of course. And maybe and I know there's like Shandor's got a group of people in his country that do some great experiments. He's sort of brought them on the show a few times. And I'm guessing, I know there's, people in Poland, Germany, France, and, we haven't heard from Thomas from England for a while, and probably all over the world who are doing stuff. I mean, maybe if you could, if you get wind of some of these guys who got some successes and got something to show, maybe you can invite them on to the group here and get more of the practical stuff to show than or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd like to ask some. Sorry, I'd like to ask something. What's your opinion? We have got very good hints about how to make disc reactors, for instance, by painting different thickness of layers of Ganses in different order on some kind of support and so on. How to make space reactors. But also we got the advice for keeping a distance from the space reactors, because we are so powerful that if you see something happening, to be possible to withdraw at a safe distance. So now I had to restructure my lab into a 12 square meters room, 3.5 by 3.5 meters room into the living flat. So I don't dare to make such a space reactors here, because there are people around within 2 meters. So what would be your advice? How to cope with this space issue? I have Ganses in dry state, which are sitting one near to the other, and I have shown several times in workshops that these are migrating. They are climbing on the walls of the boxes to get close each to the other, and it's the mass moving. It means they are very strong fields, so it's just very good raw material, just to make it powder, to add a little alcohol to dissolve it, which will evaporate quickly, and to add some sticky material like a little shell lacquer or whatever, and just to paint it over discs or over paper and to stick it into proper positions. But what will happen if we'll start to make funny effects?
I would love to see that, actually. I'd like to see some effect. That's the whole thing about it. If we're all scared to do anything, we're never going to see any effects. So we have to somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and start producing something that actually shows some effects. And hopefully the effects will, be some light would be nice. Some heat could work. We have examples of that, and different devices have been used to increase the temperature of a room and so on. And
yes, sorry, I have a thermometer here nearby, and it's interesting, even though it shows this year the same temperature as in the other rooms. If my wife enters here, she says to open immediately the windows because it's so hot in this room. But it's the room where I have Ganses.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah.
Share my mobile camera. Just let me connect with it.
And I haven't forgotten you there, Arno. We'll get back to you in a minute here.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Lee. I can really, I feel what you mean there for sure.
I agree with Lee.
I am making this.
We got some feedback happening. Oh, you got two. There we go.
And please stop that screen sharing, otherwise I will not be able to share.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And I have to switch to the back camera from the front camera. I hope this is okay. Why is it not okay? It's the other.
We see it there
Can you
now.
spotlight to the other camera?
We can see the picture of your room and it moving around. Yep, I've got it focused.
Just I need to have it spotlighted.
I got it
on the mobile.
Need to stop the audio on one of your. I need to mute one of you. I'm not sure which one. It'll.
I muted the mobile.
Okay, now we hear you and see what you're doing.
So I've shown this several times. So here on the left side I have dry Gans. On the right side it was a Gans paste in the same order. Not perfectly dry, it's half dry. And look at the positioning of the Gans. The Gans is climbing from the left side to the right side. It's climbing on the wall. You see that? It's accumulating on the right side. It's getting off from the left side. Let's see the CO2. It's literally climbing the walls to get to its pair, which is here. And here also, you see, it's not horizontal, but it's climbing towards left, and this is climbing toward right.
Yeah.
Same with the CH3. And probably same with zinc oxide, but it's a smaller quantity, so it's not so obvious, and much smaller quantity with copper oxide. But it's very obvious for carbon dioxide Gans and for the CH3 Gans. It's trying to get closer, 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 closer. So sure, here in the middle, wow, I feel something. There are strong fields inside. So this could be very good material to make it a powder, and to make a paint of it, and then to put one layer on one side, 3 layers or 20 layers on the other side to make the gradient. That's the point is that I have so many Ganses here in this room that it's hard to predict already the interactions. Oh, just a second. I have here another bottle and several other bottles. You see, these are not small quantities. These are huge quantities. And the dried Gans from the small box, it came from this amount of wet Gans, like I have here on the right hand.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I'm moving any bottle, the condition changes. Oops. So definitely it's to do something with it. Just now I'm in a very tight space for it. I have magnets for doing the neutron Gans configurations, but still I'm in the confinement on this small flat. Ah, by the way, other Ganses are here. See them? Different kind. And this is a kind of Gans like a tissue. This was originally made for patches for repairing the hard tissue. And you see it's a Gans combination which now resembles to live tissues. Structuring this building up. Okay, let's move it. This is messy. Another Gans which is structuring, and this is an old several years Gans here into this small bottle. You see, this is also positioning on one side. Here is another bottle near to the plants. It's zinc oxide. It's both kinds of salts. And here is a fern which is recovering pretty nicely. And so on. Other Ganses nearby. Zinc oxide and CO2 Gans. Okay, and I'm coping now with this joint issues. I'm glad that it's better, but repairing of the joints and the tendons, it will take a little more. Okay, I stopped my mobile camera. I'm going back to the computer.
Thank you for the tour, Shandor. Very nice.
You're welcome, and I didn't say about the CH2 Gans, which is raw material for deuterium Gans. I have a couple of bottles of this as well. It would be good to have a bit more space to make things in a more predictable way. I'm thinking to make a double wall box with outer walls filled with salt or with some magnetic fields or whatever to make some kind of confinement for certain kinds of Gans with certain fields. I have here, for instance, such a raw material to make a flat reactor in shape of a tortilla heater box. This is a strong heat-resistant plastic supplied with a piece of ceramic to keep the heat. It's just nice to paint some layers of Gans on the top and on the bottom after it's nano-coated, of course, or to put here a band of paper with certain patches of Gans paint, but without water. So Gans powder dissolved in an alcohol-based solution which will evaporate. then you have the effect of the Gans without the water after it dries. I was thinking also if we have seen so many glass containers, glass bottles for such a plasma water dispenser. So such a water dispenser bottles with a small tap here on the side. Possibly you have one. Where you put around such a bottles of Gans of different kind. So how about instead of putting bottles of Gans, to paint it with Ganses here around? To paint one stripe with one Gans, another one with other Gans, and so on. I have shared some times ago, it was the work of Mr. Marin Sorin from Romania, who made such a big bottle, this water dispenser, by hanging inside such a vials, thin wall glass vials with different Gans loads. And then after he didn't touch that water for about 1 week because he was not at home, he just suddenly observed that there were rows of bubbles at a certain distance, at a certain almost equal spacing, one between the other. I shared those photos some several weeks ago. Maybe some people have seen and remember. And you still want an effect which you can see. While it was very clear that those were small plasma gaseous balls which were aligned in a certain way due to the interaction of the fields. So you can develop on that. But I know there are many people busy. Some are busy how to make more Gans in shorter time to sell more on eBay or on Etsy and to make an income. Others are busy to stop the power meters and so on. Just don't forget your purpose.
We have a quick question.
You don't have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have to see the flag which you want to follow, the direction, the purpose toward which you go and to go on that path. Even if you are in dark, you know it's there, so you reach it. Sorry.
I still want to get back to Arno here, but just a quick question because Rui has it in the Q&A here. He says, hi Rick, there's a few questions on the Brazilian community that need authority answer from Keshe Foundation or Mr. Keshe. And one of them is about Gans fields interference with each other. That means when stored, do they need to be distant from each other, not to change their one field in a contaminate or basically to contaminate the fields from the others, to avoid contamination.
I understand the concerns. May I answer?
Yeah, you've already mentioned that in a way, Shandor, with showing the effect of having them close together. That
I would not say it's a Gans interference. I would say it's an interaction. So you can have a bottle of Gans here, and you can have another bottle of Gans at a big distance. Don't you think they still interact?
So what would be their guidelines for storage of Ganses? Should they be in different rooms for different Ganses, technically?
If they are the same kind, you want or you don't want, those will interact each with other. You can increase the distance where you still interact, and in the space between, you create a zone where you have against interaction. Now, if you want to, what you want to do is to reduce this zone of interaction. The best way is to put them one near to the other in a close proximity. Of course, they will interact, and which is stronger will feed the weaker. Maybe once Mr. Keshe told that the only way to hold the fields of the Gans is to use magnetic fields. So what you may try to do to make a magnetic cushion around. How about, it's just a thought. I didn't test it, but you may think about making, if you are very much concerned of the interaction of Ganses, to make a box or a cylinder which has its walls layered with such a magnetic foil. You can buy from 3M or other manufacturers such as thick or heavy magnetic foils, like is used for stickers, such as Halbach array stickers for.
Yeah, I don't think did Mr. Keshe recommend that, or is that just
no?
Okay, well, this is what Rui wants here, Shandor. He's specifically asking for the authority answer from Keshe Foundation or Mr. Keshe.
Okay, so let me.
If you can respond as Keshe Foundation, but we have to have something that's associated with the previous teaching, I guess, or something.
So we have, yes, I'm associating with it. It was Keshe Foundation's health teaching, where Mr. Keshe presented the cup of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there he mentioned the only way to hold the fields of the Gans, the plasmatic fields of the Gans, is with magnetic fields. So that's why he has shown that the double wall container which he used for manufacturing the cup of life with so many magnets which were stuck on it, if you remember that.
Right. Exactly. Okay, well, Rui's saying he didn't refer to interaction, but interference. He's worried about what's going to interfere with the other Ganses.
So your body contains a lot of Ganses. Your wife's body also contains a lot of Ganses. What the interference of the Ganses of your body and your wife's body when you get close? When you hug each other. So don't imagine something which you didn't experience. I explained if there are two Ganses, two plasmas or two plasma waters of similar strength, but with an imbalance, either in slight strength difference or in quantity difference, let's say one time stuff here, 3 times the mass here, in that case, automatically you will have the stronger feeding the weaker. And in between, you will have a field interaction. If you are close each to the other, you have an interaction at that space. If you increase the distance, you will still have the interaction, but you create a wind, you create a plasmatic flow from one to the other. Now the question, you want to reduce the interference of these two Ganses with other Ganses for each that you want to produce here something in a CO2 box. And you are wondering why it doesn't succeed, because you have other kind of Ganses which create a different kind of field. So in that case, the way is to put this bottle A and B in close proximity to the other and away from this one. Of course, at a certain limit.
Yep. Okay.
You have plasmatic fields everywhere. Now, if you have a Gans or a plasma water, you have a stronger field in that area. That you have to understand. I used to keep the Ganses that you have seen as much as possible in a small group, one near to the other.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. What do you call it? Horses to horses and donkeys to donkeys or something like that. Okay, we should get back to Arno here, I think. Rui had his hand up, but I'm not sure if we got, maybe we should, he's not getting back to Arno. I'll allow you to talk there. Go ahead, Rui. I'll promote you panelist. Sure. Did you have something else you wanted to add to that, Rui? I know you made a couple comments there.
Hi, Rick. Hi, you listen me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. The question is about the storage. We know that Gans interact with each other wherever they are. The thing is, when you have a Gans of CO2 to near of CuO storage, if they change after a while the fields of each other, and there is like a contamination of fields, they become different. That is the question. Or they keep their own identity, even if they are storage together. Because there is a question, they need to be 5 meters from each other, something like this. So, we need a straight answer of that.
I am recalling Carolina told that they used to keep the Ganses all together, close each to the other, and not far. But this is my remembering, and I don't remember in which workshop.
He's also mentioned something about, I think it was a 5 meter distance at one point too. So I don't know.
So whenever you can, I'll be glad to have that answer. You can write to me.
I think you better ask Mr. Keshe, because I think the answer will change every time you ask as well.
Yeah, I did. I'm waiting for the answer.
The thing is, there's no answer, because you have a tiny little vial of Gans in the room and another tiny little vial of CuO Gans on the other side of the room. It's probably not going to affect each other in any kind of...
I believe that so, but I need authority answer in that. You know.
The authority is you, Rui. What is your experience with it? When you feel the fields from the Gans, is it...
Yeah, I think they interfere with each other when they are stored
together. Then you should move them apart.
But then they keep their own identity. But many things happens with the Gans because they interact with all fields. So sometimes they even disappear, you know that. So
right. So there's a lot of interactions, a lot of things that have to be, you'd have to look at the room, all the things in the room, and know who's doing it, who made the Gans, what containers they're in. Are they plastic? Are they glass? Are they metal? Are they, is there metal?
My opinion.
Is there electricity around? You get all these variables. How can anyone give a direct answer when there's so many variables? There is no direct answer.
Yeah, it's my understanding, but they ask for it, and there is argue, and someone of them.
Well, it's because they like to argue.
They know. Yeah.
Everybody likes to think that they know, and they like to argue. Just tell them to use their own sense. If it seems okay, then it probably is. If it doesn't seem okay, then change it, please.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Some people get really sensitive to that kind of thing. And if they have that lead Gans in the same room as the other Ganses, then it's all bad and so on. And other people, maybe it's not so much of an issue to have different Ganses all in the same space. It depends on the space, the environment, the conditions, the fields that are already there, the fields that are impinging, the place on the planet, the time of the day, the time of the year, and whether it's a full moon or not, and whether your wife is in a bad mood.
Very good, Rick. It's a good observation. Thank you. It's my thinking.
So I would say it varies.
Yeah.
Just say it varies.
Yeah, they want
everybody wants exact measurements. Yes.
You know, there is people that I used to get the answers for the they get it, not to think about not their use, and they want to make rules. And we know this depends on that you just talked. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If they have a way of measuring the fields, then some objective way, that would be a great experiment to have Ganses at different, distances and see what kind of objective effect that could have. That might be a bit difficult to do, but one of the objective things is the color. Is there a change of color that goes on? And maybe that would be an indicator that the fields are interfering rather than just interacting, let's say.
But Rick, even that we find out that sometimes the work of the fields and interference from the visual fields change the color, and when it's treating someone, you use some kind of necklace or in your
We
eye.
are not treating. Stop. We are not treating. Period.
Sorry?
Pardon me?
Not treating. We are processing eventually.
Yes.
The doctors are treating.
When you are balance the fields of someone, sometimes we notice the change in color of the Gans, and we understand they lose their fields because the fields were used, and it did change everything. So that it's the change of color. So we just give it away, that Gans or necklace, whatever, and we introduce a new one. That we find out already. And you are right about your observations. Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Rui. And if you want another, more definite answer for the people from Brazil, maybe you want to bring it up in the Knowledge Seekers workshop coming up here, and just ask Mr. Keshe and see what his answer is this time around, and see what answer he gives the Brazilian community. Tell him that you're having trouble with this concept, and some people want to lock it down to a certain distance, and others are talking about it differently. Maybe he'll shed some light on that.
Yeah, there is a very good searcher there, but what happens, it's they invent too many things, and sometimes because it's easier for them. Other times they try different things, and they measure just one way of the things. So I have a couple of questions about it. One already Mr. Keshe answered. I didn't say why, but he did answer, and I'm trying to give the right answers there. But this one, it's exactly how I thought. So I think for me it's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Basically, there is no interference. There is interaction, and this is why we're using Gans, for its interaction of the fields. So of course, there is interaction, and that's the purpose to use it.
Right. Okay, I'd like to get back to Arno here. Sorry it takes so long, Arno, but you wanted a whiteboard, I think, at one point. Is that right?
Yes, please. And no problem it takes so long. It's good. Good idea. So, yeah. Can you share it on the right screen? Then I can do it.
Yeah, just a second here. Oops. Okay, over there. And
like Mr. Keshe always say, we have to look around us. I always did, and I have a lot of questions in.
hello? Hello, Arno? You still there? Did I lose the sound? What happened here? Anyone hear me? Anybody out there?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes, we do.
We're not hearing Arno though, right? Arno, something happened to your microphone. The mic's open, but we're not hearing you. Somehow your mic's gotten disconnected. Just send him a message. Okay, you're gonna have to fix your mic, Arno, so that we can hear you.
Check your volume, Arno.
You might have to reset the Zoom or something. So it just seemed to go all at once. I think he mentioned he had another way that he could talk. Okay, well, we'll let you sort that out, Arno, and let me know when you get that going again. Okay, is there anybody else that I missed that wanted to speak? Or any new topics you'd like to bring up?
So in answer to Rui, I put into the chat link to the webarchive.org transcriptions, tentative transcriptions for the 34th health teaching workshop. And the quote at 1 hour, 14 minutes and 15 seconds, where it is about the control of plasmatic fields, which can be done with magnets.
Thank you very much, Sandor.
You're welcome. I have no elephant memory, but basically I remember where I have seen or where I have heard such and such. So that's why I am able to search in the proper places. I don't have this saved on my computer. I just remember it was on Transformacom. Transformacom owner deleted those pages or took out from the public, but they are still available in the web archive, on the webarchive.org. So it was a little search to find out the reference you needed.
Thank you very much. You're amazing.
You are welcome. No. When I was a kid, the doctors didn't let me to kick the ball on the street together with others to play soccer. They said I have such a heart rheumatism or heart disease, and that's why I was confined into the room. And what can you do inside? You cannot climb on the trees, but you can read books. So every day after school, I visited to the library. We had no internet, but we had this ISBN code, so we could find documentation by indexing, either by authors or by subjects, and to find interesting literature of different specialties. So I learned to read. And when in the 90s I learned about the internet, I said, wow, it's excellent. So it's no more need to go so often for the library if the material is available online.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I advise to anyone who wants to gather information to learn how to read. Because if you train, you can read really fast and find the subject that you need in shorter time. And don't read superficially like many people do, that they say they read and they don't remember half of it. Like recently somebody said that based on a teaching where I participated too about the plasma basics, about how to make the Gans or nano coating, he understood to put metallic potassium into the water. And of course it exploded. We never said use metallic potassium, but we said potassium hydroxide. If you don't have that, or potassium salt like a potassium chloride, which you can buy from pharmacies, full description there. Why some people would pick some information from each 10th word only and not read all or not listen to all? That can be an issue. You have a lot of data, just you have to go through it. If it goes slow, so speed up your reading or listening. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Shandor. Arno, did you get your battery recharged on your?
I have to charge, you know. Can I have the white screen? Then I share.
Yeah, I'll bring that back here.
Please.
Where'd it go? There it is. Set up here.
We have the water like this, and it's going around like this. And here I put, I was watching last year, I explained before, that I was watching how the leaves create amino acids when they were hanging in the water, and I saw the vibration in the Gans kits. And I was walking here, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the light trap I wanted to try to build, and then I put the resonation of the leaves inside the imaginary light traps, and I felt it, and I put them in the water, and then I connect them, and through the earth and through the universe, and then 3 days later I was walking there, and then it was empty, and then I was all the small plants were on the water again, and what the sphere was, it was a little bit like you saw the amino acid production, so I was really excited. Then I go home, and the next day I was walking with the dogs again. I take my phone with me because I never take my phone with me. I don't like it when I walk with the dog and I'm outside. And then it was left. It was still there. So I thought, I came home, and then I thought what was happened. Then I explained myself. I was walking, and I put them again, like a little bit here, but not so strong as I put here before, and here again. And now you see also here the small plants. I make the video from this part when I was walking here 2 days after. I shall share it in the group because where I zoom in, you also see there is light on the water, in the water.
Sorry, I don't know, what are you putting? What are you putting again?
Remember that you have to explain everything you see around you, and I'm already a little bit like that. And then I start with plasma science in my Gans kits. I saw the vibration between the plates, the field vibration. And then I was walking outside. I saw how the leaves create amino acids in the slotes. I don't know how to call slotes in English. It's that small waters in the grasslands for the cows.
Yeah, okay, be like a bog or a sort of a.
But the amino acids, the amino acids create also the life in the slotes, but also supports small animals like insects and so, because it's also walking on the land. We say in the Gans kits, our amino acids, the salt, is always going up. Like with the glass, with plastic, doesn't matter. It always climbs up, and then it's also happening there. And then there's also a cycle, because then maybe that amino acid is also needed. And I already tried to reach other people with explanation too, and then show them where they have to look, and they can ask me. Then I explain. And then I was walking outside and thinking about the vibration and thinking about the light trap I showed 3 or 4 weeks ago, that you wheel the fields to create a non-physical reactor. And I was thinking about that, and I saw them, and I put them in the water. And 3 days after, the amino acid was so good that there was already green plants. So if you only imagine the reactor you built, or if you have observed the outside, what you have done in your Gans kit, I searched it back in nature, because I had so many questions I could not answer. And science could not answer. And with what I have seen in the Gans kits, I can explain so many things in nature. And then I was doing that last year too. When I was learning in the Gans kits, I recognized the things all outside. And when you only recognize and feel it and create it and put it in the water, there's going to be amino acids. So if we can find out, like we're working with bees, we feed them with honey, but if we can find out their basic needs, the vibration that creates that basic needs, we only have to, while we walk, where it's needed, vibrate that vibration, and it's there. The soul creates life. Soul is the tool of the creator to manifest the creation where we experience our life in. It's so beautiful. But we can all do it now together because we are all connected. I already shared it, but you have to open up, and when you walk outside, see what you did in the Gans kit, see it back in the nature. We can be the environment. We are the resonation. We are already doing it with One Nation, with our wishes, but we have to do it also when we're doing our thing, and then create that resonation and create the light to hold it and to create the connection you made with the wire. You have only to connect it with your touch, and then there's interaction, and then it starts. It is very beautiful and amazing that it's so easy. I always knew it a little bit in the back of my mind. I was already a little bit searching and then putting myself onto some task and then forgetting it, because then only then I could see where I was. Because I already knew I was not in my body. At times I thought I was not in my place where I experienced my things from, and then I saw it where I give the light to myself to manifest. And that light we can put the vibration in from everything we need. You remember that we give the soldiers so much love that they don't want to fight. Rick, you remember? And some people did not know where to go to. They give their energy to you because you are there. You know your task, and they feed you. So they already did the same like you. And so we have to work in the future, become one entity with our vibration, with our love, and heal the world. If the world is healed, the field is not there for us to misbehave, to misconduct. And then we have the balance in one time for all the souls. And then we can find our way back. And then we are there to provide the knowledge for them who are start searching. And that is, yeah. It's the same as the amino acids in the sloth. The cloud is not there because the cloud is there. The cloud is there because the field is there to call the cloud. Like the storm, the entity of the storm enters the plasma garden, feeds the Gans. The Gans reflects back, feeds the area because it's plasmatic, and then it was a boundary for the storm. But the power of the storm was the energy for the Gans to create the barrier of to hold the storm back. You can see it so good in that teaching. Yeah. I will share the video in the class chat so meteen. But this was what I want to share. We can do it without having anything.
Thank you, Arno. That was interesting, and that's a pretty big experience.
If you have to be understanding. If you walk outside and you see that, or you see like the moss on the beaches, go to it, because when you see ebb and flood, you see always when it is walking back to the sea on that part, there is monatomic goldish elements, and then when there is green on it, and you put the green on, the gold is gone. And then I saw the same vibration as in the Gans kit under the greenish moss, and so I saw that it was weakened. It became Gans. It took some energy out, and because the energy is out, like we see in the spectrum analysis, you see different kinds of elements. And when it is Gans, and you take that one out, and it becomes matter state again, it's not the same matter anymore. That's the transmutation. Pick one out, put one in. Because I think if we look very good to the spectrum analysis, we put different Ganses and we put them all, the spectrum analysis, you can puzzle how the stairways of creation is. Because first was hydrogen and nitrogen and the other ones, and maybe in the way how they combine in the plasmatic state, how the transition layers are working, then it's becoming a new matter. Because the density grows, it's become heavier, more gravitational fields, more magnetical fields, or lower magnetical fields. That part I cannot know yet. I'm not seeing that part yet. I'm not there. But I saw last time how Mr. Keshe, the spectrum, I knew that it was like that. You knew it was like that. But now we have the picture of that. So I think if you put all the Ganses, the spectrum analysis, as you look what's in there, you can see the framework, how it's grown to the newer. There's something out, then it becomes that, and you put something in again, then it becomes that. And then it's always the vibration, because the roots are vibrating too. And so, like Mr. Keshe one time told you, when in one knowledge seeker, I share it. If you watch that 2 weeks ago, I don't know which knowledge seeker anymore. Mr. Keshe was talking about vibration, and then the screen was all vibrating, and it is the same vibration as I saw in the leads. And then Mr. Keshe was talking about the intestines, and that is the vibration of the intestines, how they work, and it's the same as the roots, and it's the same as the leaves in the water. That's different vibrations, different intention, different feeling. But if the cocktail of feeling is right, and we created vibration, and we create the reactor of light, I don't call it light, it is density. I don't see light, I see like shade. Like between your fingers, I see also shade on some projects I make, and I call it light to give it the meaning, but it's trapping itself, and then it's active. And if you then connect it with the eyes, we make with with the engineless Starship you connect the three plasmas together. It's only so that you do it, and then if you don't do it like with metastate, but you do exactly the same, only in your mind, it's there, it's active, it's working. And that's what you asked. You want to know something about this. And I started the second lesson when I started watching Keshe Foundation. I knew already, that Sandra said, your mind is very important in the outcome. And I was already experimenting with that, a lot of them in my life, in several moments in my life. And that now a science has the same. And then we had to use the star formations. I did not create it, but I had already the knowledge to create it. And I want to go to it. And then I knew we needed the energy. So I created the star formation. I was sitting down. I picture myself in the middle of the dynamic plasmas who are on their own rotating, then connecting, creating the free plasma inside me. And then I could travel. I could see you, I explained last time. But I tried to do it in metastate because I want to find a bridge so I can help other people too. But it's not needed anymore. I see we all starting to going this direction. I'm very happy. Because now we know how if we observe knowledge and we create the knowledge in our mind, it's there. But we have to understand it only and share it. But understanding, then you can manifest that. And you don't see it, but you see the results of it, and that is good. Very good. Yeah. Okay. I hope I inspired you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Arno. Thank you for your inspiring words. Alrighty, anybody else with any inspired words they'd like to utter, or not inspired even? Any new topics or any questions that anybody would like to bring up in our panelists here? Also checking the, there was a question earlier in the live stream. Does anyone know how to reverse gangrene? And I don't know if I would naturally just say CO2 Gans water, because it's pretty much a cure-all for everything. But I'm not sure if we want to get into any medical diagnostics on that.
May I help?
Sorry. Furthermore, don't play with gangrene cases because in a couple of days it can be deadly.
Yes. So I'd leave that to the medical professionals. Sorry, Arno, did you want to say something there too?
Yeah, if there is no one, I want to bring some sides on the question before about the interaction of Gans. Because you remember the radiation factor in Britannia that Mr. Keshe had displayed this in the reactor. There were plates. My pen is not working. Oh yeah. There were plates on the wall, and the plates were behind with screws, and those screws they fall off. Remember that? And then he was in the beginning, and they thought he needed 20, 30 years, but he already said this one, if you nanocoat them, the plates will not fall off because radiation will be absorbed by the nanocoating and not go in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then I hear you talking about the Gans. Like if you have the Gans, it's reacting with the air, with the universe, and with the Earth, but also reacting with this Gans. But if this Gans is not the same, it's a different field of a different map and different Gans, you have the field interaction, right? But what's happened? Here is also a field interaction, and here is also a field interaction. And this radiation creates the transition layers like here. So then this Gans is going to feed this one, what's created, and this one is going to feed this one, and then this one is going to interact. And if I think if you don't want that, if you have to expel one ray, like if this is your Gans, and this is a nano-coated chamber, but not under, and I also think above you have to keep it up open because the Gans have to breathe with the universe and with the Earth. If it's concealed, and then it stops being Gans because it don't observe the rays from the universe anymore than on one moment. And then if you have here the Gans and you have only one, then this one will not go in because it's consumed by the nano-coating outside. And then you don't create a transition layer. Remember? And if you don't create,
that's a good point. That's why the Gans making boxes, the Gans making boxes are often nano-coated in order to keep the field, contain the fields. Yeah, good.
But then they are inside. But if you put them outside, then the fields, the radiation from the other side will not go through. You need also the radiation to fill up the gap. You create with the two layers where there is some kind of balance, the space gap. And if then the rays come in and they fall in their own gravitational fields, then the new plasma is born. And that is the new entity inside the plasma, which gives from the first and from the third and from the fifth or from the, you understand? And that is why in the spectrum analysis you got all matters in one Gans. Because it's a part of everything. But only the strings, maybe collective or maybe the formula creates the appearance of the matter state that we can see. But if you discharge the rays, it's no matter. Then it doesn't matter. There are fields because the fields it's not only the fields that create. You need the rays to fall in the fields in their own gravity, like the sun falling in its gravity and starts consuming. But you have the space gap. That's the transition layer created. And that is why Gans contaminates when it is together. But I also think if we are mature, we can put every Gans together. But if we see that the fields will not interact, then we programmed it to be silent and only with above and under to be open. But I did not try it yet because I don't know if that much different Gans. But I think that if we put it down not to connect with one Gans, it will not connect. Because we dictate also the part of that fields. Because in the beginning I put them around my house and I saw their own fields rotating, connecting with each other to create a barrier. And then in the summer my house was 10 degrees colder than outside with the door open. If we see the fields and we play with the fields, we connect them. Before plasma science, I used my spit when somebody was very bad-minded to me. I felt it, and then I put spit in my finger and put on every wall, outside wall of my house, and then jumped to the ceiling and the floor, and then I saw my bubble, and then my house was sealed for them not to rape my soul. Because many people, many people do this to harm people before because they did not know. Or maybe still not know, or they are made like that. I don't blame them, but that was my way to not harm myself and not harm them. And now I do it with the Gans, then I create the barrier. But with the cold, I'm not good, but that's inside me. I always have problem with cold. My experience, it's hurting, it's so much hurting me. But I was now to the Willem from Holland, and I sent him a message, maybe if he does a teaching to control that part, because he can he's not plasma science, but he uses mine too, and he call it different names, but he does the same. He goes inside his bone marrow to activate some triggers, so he cannot feel, so his body temperature stays the same. If he is running in the desert or swimming in the pool ocean, his body's temperature stays the same. So I hope soon this is my biggest problem is, I think, the cold, because my whole life I suffered with cold. I'm not suffering with my soul, but I have to find a way, the trigger, to only activate that one yet, I think. Then I can be my own bubble. Now I'm still connected. Yeah. Okay.
May you have a warm bubble.
Yes, but I can, when it's windy, it's still my. I already worked with it, but 2 times I was able, when I was walking outside, and it was a hard wind. I did not feel the wind. I saw everything moving around me, and I could stop feeling the wind in my bubble. But I have to expand that part. So my body can detach. My soul is detached. My soul, I can be everywhere with my intention. I can do many things. Oh, I was playing a long time. It's maybe bad, stupid thought, eh? When I heard there was an ozone layer gap, and don't laugh, eh? I was in my puberty. I was playing with myself. Every people does it, but when I was almost finished, I was gaming on that energy and going to the ozone layer to feed the ozone layer and then I forgot it, but it's still there. I felt it. All the things I fed, it's still there. It is beautiful, and so we can repair things only with our intention. Yeah. And now I do it with the fields of the plasma. It's very easy, much easier. This is unlimited energy for the soul. Yeah. I'm very happy. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Arno. All right, coming up on 3 hours here. Might be time to fade away unless we come up with some more topics that people would like to carry on with. Is there any questions, comments, or spaceships you want to show? They're going once, and they're going twice. Well, I think we'll wrap it up then, perhaps for today's session. It's jam-packed with a lot of information today. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. Shandor, you did an outstanding job there explaining things today. Thanks for that.
Thank you. I'm just repeating what I am telling so many times. With hope that some more and more people will understand more and more.
Understanding of the processes and the fields, so we appreciate your explanations. As we appreciate everybody's input as well, of course. Okay, well, that'll wrap it up. Let me just start my video briefly before, where'd it go here? Where am I?
And I wanted to say thanks for being here, Rick. It was almost like a dry fast not having the show last week, even though I woke up very late for it. But maybe the dry fast is good.
Yeah, well, it can rejuvenate you, that's for sure. I almost didn't do today's show because I wasn't feeling so great and still into the fasting thing and so on. And it can be kind of disturbing, but it all worked out really well. So thank you, everybody, for attending today. I'm trying to find, I know I've got a video that started here, but I can't find my video on the screen for some reason. So I can't even tell if it's... Okay, I'll stop the video and I'll just share the preview screen and end on that instead. Okay, any last minute comments before we sign off here? Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, for attending the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group for Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. Stay tuned for the Knowledge Seekers Workshop as usual on Thursday at 9 a.m. Central European Time. And I'm sure Mr. Keshe will have a few surprises for us, as he generally does on these workshops. And it's going to be a fast-moving year with lots of changes coming up, I think. So stay tuned, and perhaps we'll start seeing the light and the lift and all the other things that we wish to see just to satisfy ourselves in some way and to keep our inspiration going and to keep the flow of the force, the plasmatic flow going. So take care, everyone, and see you next time around.